But yet another indignity awaited the bodies before they were burnt, with results not visible on the bones. Yurovsky claims to have had his men pour acid over the corpses to disfigure them beyond recognition. Chemical composition tests on the bones conducted in Russia reveal faint traces of sulfuric acid on the remains, another match between forensic evidence and the archival account. According to Yurovsky, he and his men now begin to burn what is left of the two bodies. Falsetti puts the Bolshevik plan to the test. Instead of human flesh, he uses a close biological analog: pig flesh. Its composition and structure are so similar to human anatomy that pigs are often used in forensic comparisons.
We know that they had between an hour and a half and 3 hours to completely consume 2 human bodies.
3 hours later, the pig carcass is charred but still intact.
What we've demonstrated here is it's not possible to consume a body in a fire, certainly not one for 3 hours, relatively low temperatures.
Yurovsky's plan to incinerate the corpses was more than a failure. It was a fiasco. Dawn was breaking, and there were still 9 bodies in the truck. A drastic change in tactics was in order. He tells of how his men then dug a second pit further to the west. They threw the remaining 9 bodies into this hole, poured acid on them, and then covered the pit with planks and soil before leaving.
What we know about history is being reflected by the evidence.
But mere circumstantial evidence will not be enough to put the legend of Anastasia's escape to rest. To prove that the remains are not part of some elaborate hoax, history must be corroborated by the irrefutable: DNA. Do these new bodies belong to the royal bloodline? By most accounts, the Tsar and his royal family were a close, tight-knit group, frequently seen together. Filmed on a cruise when the children were still very young. Playing tennis while on holiday a few years later. Parading together, as in this 1913 celebration of 300 years of Romanov rule, where we can see the 9-year-old Crown Prince Alexei and the 4 daughters on the cusp of womanhood. But were the Romanovs as inseparable in death as they were in life? The DNA evidence gathered from the second grave will tell the story. 5 months after first selecting the bone samples for analysis, Mike Coble is now ready to share his findings with Anthony Falsetti.
Let's see what you've got.
The first thing that we should look at is here. This is the marker that determines sex. And sample 146, there's an XY, which means this is a male sample.
Right.
And then 147 has 1 X peak, and this is what we see with females.
So far, the DNA only demonstrates that there were 2 bodies in the grave. 1 male, 1 female. Mike Coble's next step was to compare the male sample with DNA from Tsar Nicholas and his wife, Alexandra.
So what we have here on top, this is a profile from the Tsar. And then this on the bottom is a profile from the Tsarina. And here is the male sample from the second grave. We expect that this particular profile is going to be a combination of the Tsar and the Tsarina, if this is truly Alexei. This male got this 25 repeat peak from the Tsar, and this 23 peak was passed to him from the Tsarina. And here is
17 out of 17 possible matches.
the evidence is overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. That's their son.
Exactly.
And they had one son, and that's Alexei.
Exactly.
Right.
Finally, forensic evidence that 13-year-old Crown Prince Alexei was executed, along with the rest of his family, though not buried with them. And what about the female found in the second grave?
This is some of the...
Koebel compared Alexei's DNA with hers.
What's interesting, though, is that, notice, they both share 23. They both share this marker, which is a 33.2 repeat.
Once again, marker after genetic marker is
147
shared,
has 17 repeats, 23 repeats.
leading to another overwhelming statistical probability.
It's over 1 million times more likely that these remains are siblings than if they were completely unrelated.
Okay.
Very strong evidence here that we have a brother and a sister. Yeah.
That sister was either Maria or Anastasia. But beyond that, the DNA is silent.
Of course, there is a limitation here. The DNA can't tell us exactly which child is Anastasia and which child is Maria.
The bottom line is it really doesn't matter anymore because they're all present and accounted
Exactly.
for.
Yeah.
It's taken nearly a century, but at last, the final chapter in the story of the Romanov dynasty can be written. Anastasia, the youngest Romanov daughter, did not escape the firing squad. Like her mother, her father, her baby brother, her 3 older sisters, Anastasia was shot to death in July of 1918, 1 month after her 17th birthday. She was buried along with the others among the towering birch trees. It was surely not the end any of them expected or deserved. But the DNA evidence makes it clear that's what really happened. On the night when Russia's longest-lived dynasty came to its abrupt